session, the planners gathering, the Oakland County's aging population, a regional county and local response. Again, good morning. My name is Jim Schaefer. Welcome you to today's session. Before we begin, a few ground rules. The meeting is being recorded and it will be available at oakgov.com. Your audio and video are muted for this presentation. If you could please type your questions to me using the chat feature, and then we'll moderate those questions and have discussion at the end of the sessions. And finally, if you need closed captioning, you can enable that on your toolbar. It's my pleasure today to introduce our speakers, Jeff Nutting, who's the Socioeconomic and Forecast Coordinator for SEMCOG, Sirisha Uppalapati, who is the Supervisor, Regional Development Forecast for SEMCOG, Melissa Marsh, the City Manager for the City of Madison Heights, and Eli Cooper, who's the Transit Manager for Oakland County. Unfortunately, Jim Ellison, who's a Chief of Older Adult Services for Oakland County, will not be able to join us this morning. With that, I will turn the floor over to Jeff and Sirisha.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning. I'm Sirisha Uppalapati, and I and Jeff are going to present demographic trends for Oakland County, setting the stage for later presentations. I will present the past and current trends, and Jeff will present data from our 2050 forecast. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to jump into the data. Next slide, please. This chart shows Oakland County's population growth in the last 24 years. After years of stagnation in 2000s and a slight decline during the Great Recession, Oakland County's population has grown steadily since 2009. Between 2009 and 2024, the county added more than 100,000 residents, reaching nearly 1.3 million people in 2024, an 8.9% increase compared to just 2.9% growth for the Southeast Michigan as a whole. These consistent year-over-year gains over the past 15 years highlight the county's continued attractiveness and competitiveness within Southeast Michigan. Next slide, please. Population change for a place is driven by three components: births, deaths, and migration. During the 2000s, even though the number of births shown in orange here significantly outpaced deaths, shown in blue, the county did not gain any population, as you have seen in the earlier slide. And the reason was the significant domestic outmigration from the county, shown in yellow here. The pace of domestic outmigration has slowed down since the Great Recession. The county, in fact, had positive domestic in-migration during the rebound years after. In this decade, however, births no longer outpace deaths as strongly as they once did, reflecting the county's aging population. Migration is now the key driver of growth. Domestic migration has slowed down, and international migration, shown by the green bars, has become a growing source of new residents, particularly since 2022. With natural growth slowing, the county's population growth is increasingly dependent on attracting and retaining people. Next slide, please. The chart here, the chart on the left shows age distribution in 2024, and the chart on the right shows the change in each age group in the last 14 years. Seniors aged 65 or older nearly make up 20% of the county's population today. They are also the fastest growing segment, as you can see on the right side chart. The first of the baby boomers turned 65 in 2011, and since then, about 6,000 people a year have been crossing that age threshold in Oakland County. Seniors will make up a large share of the county every year going forward. On the other end of the spectrum, because of the aging population combined with declining births and birth rates, the county is experiencing negative growth in child population ages 17 and younger, as you can see in the orange and blue bars at the bottom of the right chart. And a fun fact, there were 210 centenarians, people those ages 100 or above in the county in 2010. That number increased to 435 in 2020, a 106% increase. All these trends have implications for planning for lifelong housing, healthcare, and mobility needs. Next slide, please. This chart shows domestic migrants by age group in 2024. Blue line is those that are moving into the county, and orange line shows number of people that are moving out. As expected, you can see that the younger age groups have higher mobility rates. The mobility rates for older age groups are the lowest, with a slight uptick in the 75 plus age group. Also of note here is that more working age, I'm sorry, my dog is barking. So as you can see, the more of working age adults are moving into the county, and the higher in migration for younger children, those ages 1 to 5, indicates that these working age adults are families with young children. So essentially what this means is that the county is not aging because young people are moving out. It's mostly because of the baby boomers in the county that are staying in place. Next slide, please. This chart essentially makes the same point as the last chart, but with a different perspective. These are the shares of non-movers by age group for 2013 and 2023. As you can see, over the years, moving patterns have changed for younger age groups. But for older age groups, the older age groups are the least likely to move and remain in their homes year to year. While these trends indicate stability and cohesion for neighborhoods, they also increase the importance of age-friendly housing. Next slide, please. So what are the realities, housing realities for older adults in Oakland County? Nearly 8 in 10 seniors are homeowners, which have implications for home maintenance, retrofitting, safety as seniors stay in their homes longer. Almost half of the older adults live in single-family homes, which may essentially, those homes may not always be designed for accessibility. More than a quarter of seniors live alone, increasing the risk of isolation and challenges for emergency responses. And more than 4 in 10 senior households live in homes that are 55 years or more older, and older housing may have safety, energy efficiency, and accessibility issues that affect seniors' quality of life. And when you look at the chart on the right, only 12% of homes in the county were built since 2000, and essentially most of the housing stock in the Oakland County is older. Next slide, please. So while there are community level planning challenges associated with aging population, there are also the older population also are a resource and asset to the county. 1/3 of the senior households earn, I'm sorry, am I missing a slide? No, okay. Essentially, 42% have bachelor's degree or higher. And when you look at the chart on the right, you can see that the 55 to 64 year bars on the chart show that even more seniors in the near future have higher education, meaning they are more engaged and informed population. 32% of seniors are still in labor force. Essentially, they are working longer, and most probably many because of choice. 1/3 of the senior households earn $150,000 or more, indicating strong purchasing power. And the median home value of a senior household is $350,000. And 63% of those own with the house without a mortgage. So more seniors in the county have large equity on homes and financial stability. Next slide, please. Now, looking at the county level data, most communities now have between 15% and 30% seniors, with a few communities even higher percentage. Essentially, the darker colors in this map show higher concentrations of seniors. And you can see that the senior growth is countywide. Urban centers and rural areas are aging alike. Communities like Southfield, Farmington Hills, and then rural communities like Rose Township, Brandon Township, they all have very high shares of seniors in 2023. Next. So while seniors are increasing everywhere, rural communities are aging faster because they have higher shares of baby boomer population. These trends pose different challenges for different types of communities. Urban areas may need to consider challenges associated with higher demand for transit, walkability issues, and denser housing. Rural areas face challenges associated with access to services, mobility, and isolation. With that, I'll pass on to Jeff to present our data from our forecast.
Thank you, Sirisha. So we've looked at the past and present of population changes by age, and now we're going to look at the future using SEMCOG's 2050 regional forecast. This is a 30-year forecast of change in population, households, housing, and employment. And this change is forecast by a variety of different geographic areas, including counties, communities, school districts. So regardless of what organization you might represent, there's a lot of good data in our forecast for you to use in local planning. Next slide, please. So looking at the overall county forecast from 2020 to 2050, as Sirisha mentioned, we forecast an 8.9% increase in total population. This was significantly above the regional increase of 6.4%. We also saw a small increase in the population aged 24 and younger, only 1,021 people. That's similar to Livingston and Washtenaw. I think 3 counties combined are adding about 8,000 young persons. The rest of the region is losing more than 80,000 people in those age cohorts. And we see population change age 25 and older being in Oakland County being comparable to what we're seeing across the rest of the region. Next slide, please. So looking at the county forecast by age cohort from today, 2025, out to 2050, you see a remarkably stable age distribution. The size of these age cohort bars is not changing very much relative to the other cohorts, except for that top bar, which is the population age 85 plus. So we're forecasting an increase of 8.8% in the population age 65 to 84, but a 140% increase in the population age 85 plus. We're also seeing an increase in households with 1 or more seniors of 20%, while households with children are only increasing by 5%. Next slide, please. So digging into this population change, looking at it in 5-year increments, you can really see where the bulk of the change is coming from. And when it comes to senior population change, it's between the years 2030 and 2035. This is when the entirety of the baby boom generation will have reached at least age 65. And in fact, the older part of that generation will be reaching 85 plus. But you'll notice the size of that increase. And then if you look past 2035, you'll notice that the changes, at least in age 65 to 84, are slightly negative, meaning that that age cohort is slightly declining over time. You'll also notice that the entire population growth slows after that time as well. So this is sort of a clear indicator of the divide between the baby boomer generation and the generations that follow them, Gen X and the millennials. These are smaller generations, so they're smaller cohorts. And there's also a significant lag between the generations due to the fact that the baby boomers were typically born of parents or their parents were largely late teens, early 20s, where when you look at Gen X and millennials, their parents were typically mid-20s to late 20s. So that puts a bit of a buffer between the generational change as well. Next slide, please. So now let's look at these trends by municipality within Oakland County. So this is the change in total population over the next 25 years. You see 3 communities that are growing at more than 25%. 16 are growing between 10 and 25%. And then the majority of the communities, 43, are experiencing total population growth that's positive but less than 10%. The fastest growing community in the county is expected to be Milford Township, followed by Lyon Township and Lake Orion. And if you'll notice the map legend there, you're only seeing the colors in the yellows and greens. There's none of those extremely large changes on the map yet, but we'll see that as we move forward, looking at specific age groups. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is the population change 65 to 84. And you'll notice that there are 8 communities here that have a 25% increase, 23 between 10 and 25%, and 22 less than 10%. There's actually 9 communities that we're forecasting to slightly lose pop ages 65 to 84 during this period. The largest increase is Lyon Township, and you'll notice on the map you're still not seeing those large percent changes. Next slide, please. So here we're looking at the population age 85 plus, and now we're seeing the extremely large changes in this age cohort. There are 9 communities that we're expecting to have a more than 200% increase in what we've kind of called super seniors. Most of the county, 50 communities, will have at least a 100% increase. There are 3 communities that are forecast to have just below 100% increase. Madison Heights, that's really close to 100% increase, and then Clarkston and the very small Southfield Township. You'll notice that the largest percent increases are in the more rural parts of the county, Springfield Township, Brandon, Orion Township, and this indicates essentially the baby boomers are aging in place. Next slide, please. And so we also want to look at the changing residential patterns. So this is a map of residential development moving forward. So from 2020 through 2024, the first 5 years of the decade, the county added just over 18,000 housing units, and 35% of those were multifamily. And there was also an addition of 1,600 assisted living or skilled nursing rooms. So these are the assisted living facilities that are typically geared towards seniors. And then when we look from today, 2025, out another additional 15 years through 2040, we're seeing about 18,000 housing units added during this period. So that indicates a bit of a slowdown in residential development over time. But we are seeing that 59% of these are multifamily. So this is an attempt to address not only affordable housing concerns, but also an attempt to address the lack of adequate housing for seniors, as they move forward in the age cohorts. We're also expecting to see slightly less assisted living or skilled nursing facilities planned in the future as the ability to deal with the transportation costs that these facilities often incur to the local communities has generated somewhat of a slowdown in their placement over time. Next slide, please. So thank you. We look forward to the discussion at the end of the presentation, and look forward to any questions you might have.
All right, Sirisha and Jeff, thank you very much. Great presentations. Melissa, if you want to unmute, and we'll pass it to you.
Hi, thank you very much. So I want to talk for just a minute about the local response to the aging population. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Nothing surprising, echoing the same information that we just heard. Madison Heights population is pretty typical for Southeast Michigan. At least 25% of our residents are reported to be age 60 and over. We have a large growing number of residents, 85 plus. You might have just seen us on the news celebrating a 100th birthday party. A man who still lives in his home in Madison Heights. It was a great story, but one of the things that really has kind of come about in our community is there was a focus on young families moving in. That necessarily isn't really the case. We have the older generation outpopulating the youth, as we just heard, for all the reasons why. And we are in the process of doing our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which we had 800 responses to. And for the first time, over 50% of those responses said they didn't have any children living in their home anymore, with the largest group of people responding around the ages of 30 to 50 years old. Next slide, please. So what we're actually seeing in local communities is a housing mismatch. Seniors living in inaccessible homes. It's really hard to maintain these homes once you get to a certain age because, let's face it, we're all only able-bodied for a while. There are definitely transportation gaps. We have a robust SMART system in Madison Heights and have had for many years, but it only operates certain hours, and there still is a gap and a burden on home healthcare needs or caregivers. There also is a large demand on emergency medical services, which is something that we really don't think about a lot when we're talking about aging in place. But caregivers aren't always able to be there 24/7. They all still have jobs, or a lot of them still have jobs, and the home health care is very expensive. So if you go to the next slide, I want to talk just briefly about the trends that we're seeing in EMS services, not only in Madison Heights, but really across the area. Over 66% of our runs in a full calendar year are attributable to residents 65 and older, probably no surprise there. But 22% of these runs are really for home assistance, so falls in the house, lift assistance, those kinds of things, because seniors are a larger part of our population now, and they are staying in older homes or homes that are not exactly accessible. Next slide, please. So what is Madison Heights doing? We've done a couple of things. We've had an active adult center for many years, but it was a smaller building. It wasn't in the greatest location. A lot of people didn't know about it. So over the past probably 5 years, we ended up selling that property, demoed the active adult center, and really invested in a new active adult center, almost $4 million, to connect our city hall to our library. So now it's one larger complex. This makes it easier for the active adults to come to City Hall or go to the library or find resources. But more importantly, it allows other people to know that it's there. So the increase of people using this active adult center or finding out about senior services that are available has just because of the location of the center. So it's more visible. This community provides resource fairs. We also have built partnerships with different departments. So because the Active Adult Center, or Senior Center like it's called in many communities, is located to City Hall, there's a stronger connection between my community development department or even my city manager's office to work with bringing programs to the seniors because they stop by our office or we interact with the staff there on a more regular basis. And we really have focused on creating a better communication strategy. Really, since COVID, everything has been pushed to social media, just posted on Facebook, posted on LinkedIn, maybe run an ad or press release in the newspaper. But we actually have started to go backward and create a paper newsletter that gets included in our local newspaper insert on a quarterly basis that focuses on senior services and citywide services. We also have changed our recreation brochure to not be completely focused on family and kids. There's a huge section now that's focused on this active adult and older adult services that gets sent to all the homes instead of just a few. So we're trying to reach them through different avenues as well. Next slide, please. As I already said, this brings about new senior services. Having the older population in our community leads to numerous different things, but isolation is one of the number one problems to this. So having this active adult center that is bigger, brighter, more visible has increased utilization between our residents. So we have more programs and more outreach. Next slide. So a couple of other things that we have done. We recently have gone through and updated our zoning ordinances, and we allowed for accessory dwelling units, I can't get the words out, in our community, which is something that we hadn't done in the past. We also are trying to improve the walkability and street accessibility. Through the whole Parks and Rec Master Plan, which we're in the middle of right now, we really have been focusing on, when we talk about accessibility, a lot of people think that that means those in wheelchairs or those that aren't overly mobile, but we've tried to stress that we are all only able-bodied for a while. We all hopefully are going to get to this demographic that we're talking about of 65 or even 85, and having facilities that we can still navigate and enjoy and get out into the community and interact with others is going to be important. And that really is the foundations that we're laying now. So we are working on building very strong partnerships with senior food programs and also home improvements, because a major impact, and we kind of heard about this at the beginning of the presentation, is maintenance of these older homes. They can't do the yard cleanup that they used to. They can't clean their gutters. They can't, get the roof. Maybe they don't have the money to do that, or they just can't do it themselves. So connecting them with different programs, whether that be through CDBG or MISHTA programs or private funding, that is essential for keeping the resident population in healthy environments. Next slide, please. So we also, to that point, we are trying to be very aggressive regionally. We have a lot of conversations and close relationships with our legislatures. You can see we take a group of seniors to Lansing every year for Senior Month in May, but we want to make sure that we are in touch with them on what our needs are, and CDBG and MISHTA services available. Next slide, please. So again, this is just stressing what we have been pushing out through our community. This is something I believe in and have really been pushing from the top down, that as we make decisions throughout all of our departments, not just in community development or in the active adult center, but really all the departments in the city, we need to think about how the decisions that we're making today are going to affect our residents and affect them long term, because again, we're all only fully able-bodied for a while. And I think that really helps drive that whole accessibility issue home when I'm talking to my maybe even younger employees. So with that, I will turn it over.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Great presentation. Eli, if you want to unmute, you're up.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Eli Cooper, Oakland County Transit Manager. And for all the planners in this planner gathering, I am a planning colleague, been a member of APA since the 1980s. So I think that also qualifies me as a senior as part of the panel. Let me go to the next slide, please. So my role is to introduce the county's emerging transit program. I'll cover an overview, provide some of our provider summaries and key highlights. One of the interesting things in listening to Sirisha and Jeff's presentation is when you looked at the areas that the senior population resides in and is growing faster, it aligns with our community service area, and I'll cover that in more detail as we go forward. Next slide, please. As you know, the county voters approved the first county millage in November of 22. Our office was established, that's the Oakland County Transit Division office, in 23. We have 5 contract operators, Smart Servicing Oakland County as part of its multi-county regional authority, and the 4 smaller operators that I'll be introducing. Next slide, please. So the key piece of information to look at is where we started. So back in January of 23, right after the millage was adopted, you can see the I'll call it mauve and red colors in the southeast. That's the smart service area. But then if you look at the blue, purple, yellow, and green, those are the areas where our smaller operators had services in those days. The important thing to note, for example, in the southwest corner where it's purple, the People's Express area, although it might look like there was good service there, the service was contracted on a municipal by municipal basis. And so folks could travel to a senior center or a doctor's office in the community that they lived in, but there was no regional services beyond the community's boundaries. If you look at the map on the right in 2025, we've fleshed out the entire county. You can see the WODA orange colors expanded up to Holly. You can notice that NODA has expanded westerly into Independent, Springfield. And in the People's Express area, the change that has occurred is that we now have the operator under a contract to the county, broke down those internal boundaries. Next slide, please. So the key factor that we've been working with is trying to meet the increasing demand. And it's demand both based on some of the demographics we've heard as we all age one day every day, but also the increased geography that the service providers have to or have grown into based on our encouragement and the resources that we've made available. In order to provide the services, and you can see the ridership has increased dramatically, 210%, which is phenomenal for a public transit program. But the county has been busy working with the providers where they had a fleet of 85 vehicles. It's now over 200 vehicles, and looking at next year's contracts, going to be even more. We've seen increases in all the statistics that you would expect, numbers of rides. And the important parameter for this audience is that about 63% of the trips are actually taken by seniors. Another high percent is folks with disabilities, but the overwhelming majority of service is for the senior population. Next slide, please. Smart is significant in the context of, they do serve the most urbanized, densely populated portion of the county. They're a fixed route operator, as well as community-based paratransit and connector service. They've added several hundred new bus stops, and that's based on expanding their service area. And all total, they serve over 200,000 additional riders after the millage has passed from before. So again, in an environment where folks are traveling less, I mean, with the post-COVID era, we were talking before the meeting started in the context of who works how many days a week. That's been a real burden on fixed route providers because the 5-day commuting schedule, but at least within the smart area with the service expansion and with the graying population, we're picking up more and more riders. Let's go to the next slide. And what I'm going to do now is take a walk around the county to cover in a little more detail each of our community service providers. Let's start off with the next slide, looking in the northeast, and that's the North Oakland Transportation Authority area. The key expansion for NODA was into the Independence Township Clarkston area. It's the dramatic increase in the population that they serve. But what we've managed to do with NODA was not only increase the geographic footprint, but they have extended their service hours. And Melissa mentioned the need for extending service hours. Clearly, even though services begin at like 6 o'clock in the morning and run to 8 o'clock at night, it's not 24 hours. And a lot of seniors are transit dependent, either because they're no longer able to drive or the economic burden of driving is significant. So we are both working with NODA to expand their service hours, introduce weekend hours. And although of lesser interest to this group, except when you look at Jeff's slides and realize that even the younger folks are getting older, we've encouraged our local providers to serve the general public in addition to the senior. What is noteworthy, again, part of it is based on geographic expansion, but a lot of it is based on system growth and demand growth. 175% increase in ridership over the last 2+ years. Next slide, please. We're now looking at the Western Oakland Transportation Authority. Now, initially, WODA was really poised and they pounced on, and I'll use that term because it was like the day after I started, that they had reached out to the lake communities and they expanded and grew from the 3 townships, Highland, White Lake, and Waterford, that are presented in the middle of the map. Further to the east, we then convened a forum for the northern tier communities, and WODA was quickly welcomed in to serve the Holly Township, Groveland area. So they've greatly expanded their service territory, similar to NODA, and it's with many of the smaller operators. Getting into a longer than 12-hour service day has been really important. Historically, between medical appointments and trips to community centers, it was limited from the late morning till the mid-afternoon, but we're now seeing 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. service and weekend service in all these operators. We continue to see requests for additional vehicles, and WODA has grown 170% over the past 2+ years. Next slide, please. OPC, they changed their name since the millage. I think it's fair for me to say it here. They used to be called the Older Persons Commission, but they've now rebranded as the OPC Social and Activity Center, because as we all get older, we don't like to be referred to that way, right? So OPC, they've dropped the quote unquote name in their title. The interesting observation about the OPC service area is it has not changed. They still continue to serve the base communities, but they've still seen 36 to 40% increase in ridership. Some of that is based on, with the county support, they are taking folks to more medical visits, some in Macomb County and Sterling Heights, some further south into used to be Beaumont, Corwell area. So again, the expanding hours, the expanding driving boundaries are a benefit to all travelers, but the emphasis on this presentation for the seniors and the OPC area is graying like the rest of the county, even though the rates of overall population growth are small. Some of my own analysis, and I don't want to get into data with the experts on the screen here, but that the Rochester Hills area is aging at a faster rate than some of the other communities that are being served by our smaller providers. Next slide, please. People's Express, again, the interesting scenario was that when we came on board, they had individual contracts. We worked with them to create a single unified service area, and that took several months. So they were a little slow joining into the party on the rapid expansion, but they made up for lost time quickly. Once we were able to break down the driving boundaries, which was the first instance, they saw a significant increase in their ridership demand. So people from South Lyon could actually go to Commerce Township via transit. So that was wonderful. And then as we went further into 2024, the city of Novi, which has a large population base and high demand, has joined the Southwest service area of People's Express. And all total, between breaking down the silos of the individual local government units and adding something as large as Novi into the group, nearly a 300% increase, tripling of ridership over 2 short years. I know that we continue to be asked for additional equipment in order to meet the growing demand of People's Express. Next slide, please. Smart. This is, we introduced earlier as the fixed route provider. But for the first time in a long time after the millage, Smart actually extended their fixed route services westerly out to and through Novi to Wixom, further north from the Troy area up into Rochester Hills to Oakland University. And then the most recent extension was the Highland Road service that extends out from Pontiac, Waterford into White Lake along Highland Road. So there's been expansion of the fixed route service, but at the same time, the connector, the ADA paratransit have continued to expand, as well as the flex zones that provide that public related Uber Lyft type service. Next slide, please. So in summary, you can see a couple of images of what are the more, I guess, more regularly seen transit vehicles. Everyone has seen large buses operated by Smart in the southeast part of the county, but throughout the rest of the county now, a lot more transit vans and cutaways. Those are the types of vehicles we're providing to the local operators. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we as the county continue to do is we coordinate the operators. So I could show the map that had the 5 different providers, but what happens when you're in one provider's area and your doctor's in another? We work with them to coordinate transfers, and that's not as desirable, particularly for elderly and people with medical conditions. So we have work to do to continue to coordinate, improve the dispatch capacities. One of the things that we and our operators do is we manage to monitor the service response. So through a Qualtrics program, if you ever log on to the county's website on the transit page, you'll be asked to survey. All of the transit vehicles have QR codes, and our seniors are quite tech savvy. So we get good feedback, as do the operators, on are the trips timely, are the drivers driving well, and we both created benchmarks and we're monitoring that. For the local officials in the audience, we have a transit ready guide to help prime the pump for some ideas that you might have going forward, and then we'll be working with some TOD transit oriented development recommendations. Next slide, please. Couple of other things that I would touch on. The county over the past year has introduced the This Rides on Us veterans program. And again, many veterans are like the rest of us, getting older. But what we're looking at is continuing to increase transit service and ridership, working with our partners. We have also, in addition to providing support for the operators, have an access to transit program where we provide, last year we made up to $2 million available to local governments for bus stop improvements, sidewalk improvements, crosswalk improvements, trying to make sure that the access to transit is safe, convenient, and comfortable. Next slide, please. That's my contact information. I know we have some question and answer coming up, but if you have any questions or about services or funding under the Veterans Ride program or the Access to Transit, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions. Jim,
Okay,
back to you.
great. Thank you very much, Eli. We do have a few questions and comments. First one up, if we add housing and other accommodations, example, assisted living for seniors, we will need to repurpose, need to be able to repurpose these as the baby boom passes on. Good point. And anyone wish to comment on that? It's kind of a future land use issue.
That sounds like a me question. So I'll give it a shot. It's an interesting question, but I think just from a general land use perspective, we are so deficient in housing that is ideally designed for seniors that there's no way we would close that gap such that any particular type of senior housing that we create or develop over the next 15 to 20 years, there will still be significant demand for that type of housing moving forward. So I don't think we'll reach a situation where that type of housing would be underutilized, at least for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Eli, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, so I've got personal experience, and as an Oakland County senior and resident, I've got in-laws who are approaching and entering into their 90s, recently sold their single family home, and it took till they got to their 90s until they were ready to find what I'll call retirement living. My wife, unfortunately, is disabled, and I was looking for assisted type living. And it is a challenge, but it is also an opportunity in the fact that some of the housing stock gets retrofitted with senior accessibility improvements that might be there for future buyers. But quite frankly, when you look at the demographic trends, these are huge issues, and they're being experienced by families even today.
Okay. All right. Next question. Jeff mentioned that there has been a decline in assisted living residences being constructed. I thought he said it was because of transportation demands. Can he clarify or expand on that?
Sure. So I think if we look back to the last decade, the 2010s, there was a lot of talk around the need to build additional assisted living or skilled nursing facilities to assist not only with senior housing in general, but more specifically toward those seniors who might have additional health concerns that these facilities are designed to address. So there was a significant increase in the siting of these facilities. What we have experienced recently, though, is a bit of a slowdown in siting those facilities, and the reasons that are typically associated with that slowdown is that communities are coming to grips with the additional cost that is incurred by their emergency services. So these types of facilities in general have a higher rate of usage of emergency services. This is typically in transport, so transporting people from the facility to a medical center or to a hospital. And many of these facilities do not operate their own in-house transportation systems. So they're relying on the local community to bridge that gap. And there are communities are experiencing increased cost to their emergency services from these types of runs. And so I think there's been what I would describe as perhaps a bit of a cooling off period where communities are trying to calibrate what these costs are and what impact that will have on their budgets. And so this is now filtering into the approval process for planning these sorts of facilities in terms of, and entering into types of contracts between the community and assisted living facility in terms of cost sharing on these runs. So I think that largely accounts for the more immediate slowdown in siting these facilities. And, the hope is that as the demand for them increases, that, that particular arrangement will get worked out over time, and we'll begin to see more of these facilities being sited.
Okay. Does Eli think that Oakland County has tackled what Oakland County has tackled with transit is scalable to other counties in the state?
So the simple answer is we've made dramatic progress in 2 short years, but it was 2 short years following the public vote. And so, there's no problem that if you throw more money at it that you can't help to address. So to the extent that other communities, and I know Wayne County is looking at a countywide millage coming up, the reality is that whether it's a fixed route operator, be it SMART, be it DDOT or CATA, some other part of the state, those are large institutions that have the capacity to scale up. The real challenge is, are there community operators that have the capacity to grow? So I mentioned that like WOTA was poised to pounce on the growth opportunity. They read the tea leaves of the millage. But if we didn't have a millage, I would not be sharing these glowing statistics. So I do believe that although we had great partners and we've got the resources in order to provide the expansion that's needed, others could replicate that. But let's make no mistake about it. It is complicated. It requires resources, and you've got to have the esprit de corps between the funding entities and the operators in order to rise to the occasion.
Okay, great. Another question for you, Eli. When will the Smart Flex coverage area be expanded? For example, it only covers the southern half of Troy.
So appreciate the question. The reality is that SMART has just completed a smarter mobility program, and that they're going through the public hearing processes for service extensions that came out of their planning process. As they conclude the regulatory components for service expansions, the challenge that SMART will experience will be finding the resources to expand the service areas as is programmed in their plan. I'm optimistic that they will be able to find those resources. But as I was watching the news this morning, it seems like there's a bit of a falderall out there in Lansing, and there's another one in DC. So when we talk about expanding public services in the light of potentially state and federal shutdowns, let's get government squared away. Let's then find the resources. The planning does support that, and I would think if anyone has questions, they would direct those to SMART. Give me a call or send me an email. I'll connect you with the right folks in the planning group at SMART to get you the information.
Okay. Question for Melissa. Have you found what have been the statistics in terms of usage of the new senior center, both in terms of your and have you seen a difference in the age groupings that are utilizing the new facility?
So we haven't really seen a difference in the age groupings because we're only open during the day, but we have had an uptick of demand for evening hours. We just currently don't have the staffing to do that. So there is more interest because our center is open for anyone 50 and up. And utilization went up almost 80%. Now there was a decline recently, and like we offer bus trips and those kind of things more expensive. Those have kind of dropped off, I'm sure, because of just economy and inflation. But the other programs have been wildly successful, and we've gotten a lot more utilization. So it was around 80 to 82% increase after we opened the new center. And there also has been a recent uptick in utilization when I said we went out to going back to a paper newsletter, which everybody wanted to get away from, and we actually make that an insert in our CNG. There were people that didn't even know this was a service that the city offered. So there was an uptick that way as well.
Okay, excellent. And then end of the questions, but an observation only that it looks like the world, and more particularly Southeast Michigan, is going to be a quieter place after 2050. So that's as good a place as any, I think, to wrap things up. I'd like to thank our speakers. A great job, very good information. And to bring to everyone's attention, we have two planners gatherings coming up. October 7th, we're going to be talking about planning and zoning for solar. And October 21st, we're going to be talking about partnering with local chambers of commerce in planning. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for participating today. And again, a big thank you to our speakers. Appreciate your efforts. Thank you.